it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I have a dear friend, business associate, somebody I know for probably about 10 years. Leah Lakins, the CEO of Fresh Eyes Editorial, is somebody who I will call somebody I've collaborated with. She helped me with my last book, From the Bar to the Boardroom. She helped me write it. We've done business development together. And over the 10 years we've gotten to know each other, we've become truly true friends. And she's a woman leader who I respect and admire. Sharing a little bit about what Leah does and what Fresh Eyes Editorial is she works with independent publishing professionals that provides collaborative writing, ghostwriting, editing, and copywriting, as well as publishing services for several of the big five publishers, literary agencies, and independent authors, including Audible, Ben Bella, Hatchet, HarperCollins, McGraw-Hill, Penguin, Simon & Schuster. I can go on and on. But most importantly, instead of me talking about Leah, thank you for joining me today on Her Success Story.
I am delighted to be here, and what a beautiful full circle moment it is to be back on your podcast again. So thank you.
So we met about 10 years ago. You helped me with the book, and you were on Her Success Story back in 2019. We worked on it in 2018. Let's start for a second here. Let's go back for our listeners who don't know your backstory a little bit. You had a full career in publishing. What was the jump, the catalyst for you to go out on your own and start a business? Or at that time you kind of saw yourself as a freelancer? Kind of what was that transition like? What did you do? Where was that?
Yeah. I started out my editorial career 21 years ago in the DC metro area. I worked for several nonprofit agencies working with their publications and magazines. And most significantly, I worked with one association as a book editor for 5 years. That experience really helped me to shape my editorial chops. I got to see what it looked like when a book came in the door and when the book was finally finished and beautiful with a cover. So I remember there was one day specifically at that job, I remember signing off a significant invoice for one of our freelancers. And I was like, wait a minute, people do this independently? Let me figure out how to do that. So I started moonlighting while I was working at that job. And then maybe 7 years after that, at the top of 2014, a lot of things had changed in my life at that point in DC, and I'd always wanted to move to New York. So I said, let me see if I can make this work in New York. And fortunately, it worked out. Not that it hasn't come with its challenges and ups and downs. New York is a city that will kick your butt if you're not careful. But I think choosing to move to New York and to decide to work independently, those were two decisions that at the time seemed insane, but were the best things for my career. I don't think that my editorial career would have been as prosperous as it has been had I not moved to New York. So hopefully that answers that question.
So, okay, you came here and you were going to be a freelancer.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. What was the transformation for you? Because it has been, and I've seen it, and we've talked about it numerous times, that you transformed from like a freelancer to a business owner. And starting Fresh Eyes Editorial and looking at it as the scope of services and what it does today.
Yes. I think I had to realize that I was being called upon to work on large projects and to do this at a capacity you know, at a capacity where I couldn't just do this by myself. I had to hire other people to work with me to do transcripts. I've had several interns over the years. So when I realized, I was like, oh, this is bigger than me. I had to recognize that, this wasn't just this moonlighting freelancing thing that I was doing, but this is an actual business that actually helps people to fulfill their dreams to become an author. So that didn't happen overnight. And I think as I've stepped more into becoming the CEO of my business, it's helped me to become more selective. I can't do everybody's book. So whose books do I want to work on? How do I want to support them? So the more I step into the CEO shoes, it helps me to be more selective and it helps me to further refine how I support authors.
So, in supporting authors,
Mhm.
I named off quite a few mega publishing companies: the
Mhm.
Simon and Schuster's, the McGraw Hills, the HarperCollins, the Penguins. I mean, did you have relationships with? How did you build this? Honest to goodness, because
Yeah.
I one of the things, I mean, I know, but I think it's fascinating to go back and see you are somebody who came up from DC. It's not that you came in with, I've been working in New York and I knew all these people.
No.
Where did you start? How did you start building these kind of relationships with those kind
Yeah.
of organization, those publishing companies?
Well, I met the very first editor that I worked with when I was in DC. So I met one of the editors I did one of my first ghostwriting projects with, who worked at HarperCollins. And then from there, started making relationships with a number of literary agents, like literally an editor who I do quite a bit of work with, a woman named Krishan Trotman. Krishan and I met each other in 2017, and we actually didn't begin working together on anything until 2020. And now I am literally working on my fifth book with her. So
Wow.
I always say, nurture those relationships. Literally at the top of the year, I'll have a lot of conversations with different literary agents and different editors. And we may or may not do work together, but like sometimes another editor will refer me to another editor at one of these big five publishing companies who will use my services. So lots of lunches, especially during the thick of the pandemic. I feel like I was zooming my life away with a lot of these literary agents. But it's probably taken all 10 years to build up the relationships that I have and to continue nurturing them. And even with, the editor I just mentioned, Krishan, I think, she wouldn't have hired me for the fifth time had it not, had I not nurtured her authors and made sure that I delivered the books the way that she wanted me to. So lots of nurturing those relationships slowly but surely. So yeah.
I want to share a story for a second here.
Please, you're
I
right.
I was in San Diego, California. It was a personal trip, whatever, a weekend. My husband and my son were out golfing. I took the rental car, go smoozing around to go to a Barnes and Noble. And
Mhm.
lo and behold, I sit down in a chair and I look up and I see in the promotion area the book that you just wrote.
Oh
And
my God. Wow.
I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, Leah wrote this. Leah wrote this. Leah wrote this. Leah. And I remember taking a picture. I think I texted it to
You
you. This is
did.
a few
You
years
did.
ago. And I'm
Yes,
like, look where I am. Look what you did. And it is, I don't know if you get as tickled pink.
I do. I do.
I have to say, I get tickled pink.
Well, it was interesting. I did a trip to Ghana the week of Thanksgiving last year, and there was this lovely couple on my trip, and we were doing a bus tour around the capital of Ghana. And one of the wife and the husband and wife duo, she literally had a book that I had written, and my name was on the cover of this one. And she's like, "Wait, is this you?" And I was like, "Yes, yeah." And to me, I always get so demure about, I'm just a ghostwriter. I'm in the background. But I think like this is the year that I'm like, no, I get to take the ghost out of being a ghostwriter. I get to stand
Love that.
fully. And, this is the work that I do. This is the work that I'm proud of, and collaborating with people and sitting in the midst of their stories for 9 to 12 months is a labor of love. And I get to celebrate that. Yeah.
How do you manage your time? Because when you're like writing,
Mhm.
it's intense.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've definitely learned in the last couple of years to make sure that I make time to nourish and nurture who Leah is just as a woman, who Leah is as a sister, as an auntie. Like literally last week, super, super full week, but I brought tickets to see Stevie Wonder at the Garden. And as tired as I was, I saw Stevie Wonder. I stood on my feet for all 3 hours. Oh, I didn't call you for Stevie. I'm sorry. I still love you.
What happened? You lose my number? You went to see Stevie Wonder without me? Come on.
I know. I know. I just said this to one of my good friends in Maryland. She was like, "You saw Stevie?" I was like, "Yes, please still love me." But yes, but I mean, I was exhausted, going to see the concert and the next morning, whoo Lord, I was no good because I stood on my feet for 3 hours and did dinner after that. But that was so important to me that in addition to like I'm literally writing a book right now and supporting three authors with book proposals, I need to see Stevie Wonder too. So, I'm a natural night owl, so you'll find me at any number of jazz clubs in New York City, after dark
If you
replenishing.
want to, if you want to actually just hang out and talk with Leah, just find out which jazz club she's out with, which
Exactly.
night, and that's where she is.
That is where I will be. So, it's sometimes it's a heavy season of I'm doing content development with my author. So lots of interviews. I mean, during my work with you, I spent a good portion of time like gathering the story. And then I set aside time to write the story. Then I set aside time, to be with that person's editor to shape it for the editorial vision. So it's just, carving out chunks of time. And I think my process is a little different from other people's of like, oh, we do 5 hours of this every day. It's just like, nope, this is writing season, this is editing season, this is content development season, and just figuring where I am in that. And then, somewhere around 10 o'clock at night, if I'm not in bed, I'm in somebody's jazz club. So, yep, that's how that works.
What have you seen as the transformation for you as far as going from this idea of, hey, look what a freelancer can make and I'll freelance for a while,
Mhm.
to stepping into that CEO position? I mean, right now you're doing the Goldman Sachs program, which is a phenomenal program and
Yes,
a great amazing that anybody when gets into it. So cheers to that. But
thank
what has that transformation been for you?
I think honestly, at the top of the pandemic, for me, spending that time alone with myself just really helped me to clarify what is it that I really want to do? How do I want to show up? And, one of the important things to me, how I nurture myself as well, is I make sure that I invest in life coaching for me. I have a long-term life coach named Dava, and I have another life coach I work with, our mutual friend Jennifer. And like one of the things I discovered is like recently in some of my life coaching calls is that I really tell people's heart stories. So what does it look like to tell people's heart stories? What does it look like to just go from just doing anybody's book? I mean, and not saying that the books I did previously before I had that clarity weren't just as important, but now it's like I'm working with people who are on purpose for something that's really big. So whatever I'm putting in their book has the power to transform how people think. Literally, my last ghostwriting project is a book called Love Out Loud with this fabulous couple, two fantastic gay Black men who, forged their love together in the South and now are fathers of three lovely children. I am so proud of that book, so proud that,
Beautiful.
prayerfully that's going to change people's minds and just, see that everybody has the right to have the family that they want. So, just really being more focused about I tell stories that have the potential to change people's hearts and minds and help people who are up to big things have a greater platform with a book. Yeah.
When we met, you had all these goals for yourself.
Hmm.
Okay. And what another thing I admire about you is goals have not always come to fruition as you've put them out there, but don't let them go.
Right. Hmm.
But share that piece of the story because I have a bunch of questions around it because
Yeah.
there's a lot of learning in this, Leah. There's
Absolutely.
so much learning.
Well, I remember like when I was business coaching with you, that one of my big things was like, oh, I want to take a year off and do this like year of travel. Like I want my, grown up gap year. And so, when I woke up on my 40th birthday a couple years
Okay, I'm going to interrupt. By the way, when Leah talks about a grown up gap year, because she has a full master's,
yes.
so she did what is that 6 years of the high level schooling. So she's like, I want my
Yes.
gap year. I missed
Yes.
it.
Yes, yes. And I remember when I first started coaching with you, I'm like, I want my grown up gap year. So, when I woke up on my 40th birthday, not having done my grown up gap year and just some other things that I thought I was supposed to happen by 40, I was like, oh my God, my life is this and my life is that. And now standing here at 45, like I lived in Jamaica for 4 months, I've done a month in South Africa. Has it, yeah, did I get like the full grown up gap year? No, but I've done 6 months abroad so far. And I'm really grateful for those experiences. And I think one of the things I've learned is to take off the timetables, to take off the comparison to other people, and just allow life to flow in the way that it does. I mean, honestly, I paid for this month-long trip to South Africa in 2022, and just because of scheduling and life, I didn't get to actually do it until 2024. Am I mad that it happened a year and a half later? No, it happened when it needed to happen. So, yeah.
What has surprised you in this journey?
Oh my Lord.
Do we have long enough to go here?
I There's something about me living out my life and dreams in New York specifically that I don't think it could have happened the same way had I stayed in the DC metro area. I actually went back home to Baltimore for 9 months during the pandemic. I mean, I rode
I
out the thick
remember.
of the pandemic here in New York. So I just needed a break and, recalibrate with family. And when I got the opportunity to come back, I won the housing lottery. Woohoo! And I took a second, like, okay, do you really want to go back? And I'm like, I can't not say no. There's some magic and hard work that happens with me being in New York that I don't know. It's just I don't think it could have happened had I not said yes to living out my dream here. So there's some alchemy that happens with me in New York that doesn't happen anywhere else. So yeah.
I want to ask, you've built amazing relationships with all the publishers and the various, streams. Do they just come find you, or how do you keep up the how do you keep the relationships going? And in the time that you're doing in the interviews and the editing and the writing, where's the priority in that, and how and why do you keep that going?
I mean, in true honesty, that is what I'm working through now in my Goldman Sachs program. I mean, you know me, I'm naturally gregarious. I'm, naturally, I discovered on the pandemic, I'm an ambivert. There are times that I'm extroverted and times when I'm introverted. The extroverted times come on. I'll, do a couple lunches with people. I'll zoom it up with people. And then there are times I'm like, okay, I just need to go quiet somewhere. But it's important to me because there are just so many stories that I feel like still need to be told. And I think that I'm honored when people consider me for that and when people ultimately choose me for that. And I think it's just important because writing a book is a bucket list thing for a lot of people. And, everybody don't have the same ability to write or to pull it together. So I'm literally thinking of forward for my 2025 of okay, I want to have this many lunches per month or just, and so still thinking that through strategically and also making sure I don't burn myself out. So I'm literally kind of rejiggering that as we speak. But when things are important to you, you make them happen. But now it's just like, okay, how do I be more strategic about making those things happen?
If you had one tip or piece of advice to share for our listeners of the transformation from freelancer or idea of starting something to owning the CEO position of your company, what would it be?
I think something I've learned for myself this year is to benchmark yourself against yourself. Don't benchmark
Mhm.
yourself against anyone else. When I look at my numbers, the projects that I was doing in 2014 versus 2024, I've come a long way.
Oh, yeah, you've come a long way.
But if I benchmark myself against another ghostwriter or another writing coach, I'm like, oh my God, their social media is this or that. I'm always going to lose. I'm always going to lose. But if I benchmark
Touche.
myself against myself and what I've done and the goals that I have set for myself, and also taking off the timetables, like I am not upset of how my life has spun out in my mid 40s. I mean, oh my God, it needs to be this and I need no, like I am so happy that the fact that the life that I've chosen has given me the choices that I've been able to live out. I may not have been able to live in South Africa for a month, had I stayed in the DC metro area and still had a, traditional job, So I'm really glad of the choices that I've made, that I get to benchmark it against myself and I get to take off the timetables. So, yeah.
I love that. Leah, thanks for joining me here today on Her Success Story.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
This was so much fun. It's always fun when we do these things. It's always fun when we hang out.
I know.
Listeners, if this was helpful, if it was an interesting interview for you, if you enjoyed the conversation, pass this forward. We always appreciate when people are passing it forward and these stories get out there. Hit subscribe. We come into your inbox or your podcast app every Monday morning with new wonderful interviews with great people like Leah Lakins of Fresh Eyes Editorial. And thank you for joining me here today. We will see you next week with more great content and interviews.